Okay. Hello, champions. I hope my voice is clear. So, this is chapter 1, ratio and proportion indices logarithms. We have already completed unit 1 ratio in previous video. So, let's go on to page 8, unit 2, proportions. Today we will learn about proportions. Okay. So, unit 2, proportions. What are the learning objectives? After reading this unit, a student will learn what is proportion. Okay, let us understand what is proportion a bit before we get into the text. What was ratios? We have already learned about ratios. It is A is to B. A is to B is known as, we read it as a ratio, right? So what is a proportion? Equality of two ratios. Okay, if suppose A is to B is one ratio and C is to D is another ratio. So equality of two ratios is called as proportion. A is to B is equals to C is to D. This equality makes it a proportion. Okay. So what else you're going to learn here? Properties of proportion. So before getting directly into the text, let's see which properties you're going to see about proportion and how to use them. Suppose it is already given A is to B is equals to C is to D. This is a proportion. So the first property that you're going to study is cross multiplication. Okay. So what is cross multiplication? A by B is equals to C by D. By cross multiplication you get AD equals to BC. Correct? This property is known as cross product rule. Let me write it again for you. A is to B is equals to C is to D. So what does cross product rule says? Product of extremes is equals to product of means. What did I just say? A, B, C and D are the terms of proportion. Okay. So A is the first term, B is the second term, C is the third term and D is the fourth term of proportion, right? So in all this, A and D are extreme ends, right? Extreme ends. And B and C would be called as middle terms, middle numbers, right? So means. So how to read this equation? AD, this is product A into D, product of extremes, which is equals to BC, product of means, that is middle terms. So you understood the logic. A by B is equals to C by D. When you cross multiply, it is AD equals to BC. This is cross product rule. We are going to study ahead in the text. Second property you are going to study is invertendo. What do you mean by invertendo? Suppose A is to B and C is to D. These two ratios are equal, which we call it as proportion. So if these two are equal, then B is to A is equals to D is to C. Right? So A by B is equals to C by D. And if you take all the right terms to the left and left term to the right, how are you going to write it? It will come as D by C, which is equals to B by A, which is as good as B is to A is equals to D is to C. This property is called as invertendo. Okay. Next property. Next property that you're going to study is alternando. Again, if A is to B is equals to C is to D, then what is alternando? It is A is to C is equals to B is to D. How will you prove that? A by B is equals to C by D already given. You take C on the left side and take B on the right side. What do you get? A by C is equals to B by D, which in turn gives us this proportion, which we call as alternando. Okay, we will study in detail. Next property that you're going to study is componendo. Now, if you remember, let me ask you a question on the ratio topic that we have already studied. What was compounded ratio? If you remember, there were two ratios, A is to B and C is to D. So how did you, what is compounded ratio? You have written compounded ratio as A into C is to B into D, correct? What is the difference between componendo and compounded ratio? Both are very different. They have no relation with each other. Okay. So, in case of proportion, componendo, what does it mean? Here, A is to B is equals to C is to D, which is already given. When we expand this, right, you get A is to B, A by B is equals to C by D. If we add 1 on both the sides and simplify the equation, we get A plus B by B is equals to C plus D by D, and this is the proportion known as componendo. That is, A plus B is to B is equals to C plus D is to D. Okay. Alright, we will study in detail in the chapter. I'm just giving you an overview to start with. The next property that you're going to study is dividendo. Okay, again, given A by B is A is to B is equals to C is to D. This proportion is already given. How will you write it? A by B is equals to C by D. Subtract 1 from both sides and simplify. A minus B by B is equals to C minus D by D. So this is dividendo. That is, A minus B is to B is equals to C minus D is to D. Okay, next property, componendo and dividendo, both. Componendo and dividendo. Right? I hope you all are writing with me. Since when you start reading the chapter, you would 80% complete your chapter when you are on the first page itself. So it will be helpful for you if you carry and keep your text open sticky notes, pencil, pen, and your calculator ready to solve the questions also with me and to write some important notes and solutions. Okay, so componendo and dividendo means when you um, you know combine, right? When you combine both, then what do you get? You're going to get C plus, okay, you're going to get A plus B by A minus B, which is equals to C plus D by C minus D. So componendo, you add 1 in the original ratio, dividendo, you less 1 in the original ratio, and then you divide 1 by 2 and you get this ratio. We will study in detail. What is the next property you're going to study? It is called as addendo. Now you would say ki I've already added 1 on both the sides. So that is componendo. So what is addendo then? Okay, so first things first. First things first. Addendo assumes that there are two or more ratios which are equal to each other. Suppose A is to B is equals to C is to D is equals to E is to F, and it goes on. So these ratios are also equal to adding all the numerators divided by adding all the denominators. That is, all these ratios are equal to A plus C plus E and B divided by B plus D plus F. So this is another property of proportions. So there is another last property that you're going to study is subtrahendo. Okay, what is subtrahendo on the other hand? Again, there are two or more ratios which are equal to each other, right? So subtract from the first all the numerators and subtract from the first all the denominator. That is, these are all equal to A minus C minus E divided by B minus D minus F. Okay, so again we are going to study it in detail. So this is what the overall properties of proportion and how we are going to use them, which we will see further. Let's go ahead. Unit overview. Overview of proportions, properties. Okay, let me ask you now how much you remember. Okay, so this way you will also revise it with me here itself, and when we will come on the text part, you will always already be well versed with it. So what is cross product rule? The spelling of product is incorrect here. Okay, so what is cross product rule? What did you what do you remember? Cross product rule, the only uh, which you can remember it with words. Product of extremes is equals to product of mean. So A is to B is equals to C is to D is given. So product of extremes, that is A into D, is equals to B into C. You can write it here. Okay. Besides, next, what was invertendo? Now invert. Okay, you can remember with this word invert. So if already A is to B is equals to C is to D is given, so inverted B is to A is also equals to D is to C. Correct? What is alternando then? If A is to B is equals to C is to D is given, so what is alternando? A is to C is equals to B is to D. You know, just numerator on left side and denominator shift it on right side. That is alternando. Correct? So what is componendo? You will remember it by adding 1 to both sides, right? A is to B is equals to C is to D, already given. So A by B plus 1 is equals to C by D plus 1, and simplify it. So you get A plus B is to B is equals to C plus D is to D. This is known as componendo. So similarly, let me see. Okay, so let me use the eraser over here. Okay, so what is dividendo then? Dividendo is subtract 1 from both sides. So this is the ratio, like proportion, that you're going to get. A minus B is to B is equals to C minus D is to D. That is dividendo. So what is componendo and dividendo? Okay, let me write it again. What is componendo and dividendo then? It would be A plus B is to A minus B is equals to C. Sorry, C. Okay, let me write again. So if A is to B is equals to C is to D, then A plus B is to B, A minus B is equals to C plus D is to C minus D. This is, sorry, this is componendo and dividendo. So what is addendo then? What is addendo? When two or more ratios are equal to each other. A is to B, A is to B is equals to C is to D is equals to E is to F, okay, etc. Which are all equal to A plus C plus E divided by B plus D plus F. This is important property, okay. And similarly, it is for subtrahendo. Here, subtrahendo property is not written in the text. You can write it below it. So when you subtract A minus C minus E divided by B minus D minus F, okay. So that is subtrahendo. So you can write subtrahendo. Correct? All right. So next, proportions. What is cross product rule? By now you would know what is cross product rule. AD equals to BC. That is, product of extremes is equals to product of means. That is correct. Then what is continued proportions? Again, the spelling of proportions is incorrect. Okay, so what is continued proportions? Let me ask you one question before I tell you about continued proportions. You have learned something called as continuous ratio, okay, in the ratio unit. What was continuous ratio? So three numbers, you know, A is to B is to C. This was continuous ratio if three numbers A, B, C were given and they were put in a ratio. So A is to B is to C was given. And what is continued proportion then? Okay, so continued proportion is very different from continuous ratio. Okay, so don't mix this up. Let me explain. Three or more numbers are so related that the ratio of the first to the second and second to the third are all equal. So suppose we have A, B, C. Okay, A, B, C numbers are given. So A by B is equals to B by C. Okay, this is what continued proportions would say. If these two are equal, okay, then A, B, C are said to be in continuous proportion, and which will imply that when you cross multiply, it comes as b square is equals to ac. So b is equals to root ac. Okay, if you understand this properly, it means these three quantities are in continuous proportion. Okay, we will read it in detail in the text and then I will explain it again. You can understand at that point of time and everything will be clear. Let's move ahead. What is mean proportional? So again, in the above example for continued proportions, a, b, c numbers are given and a by b is equals to b by c. So property was b square is equals to ac. So b is the mean proportional. Okay, b is the mean proportional of the above three numbers. Okay, and a, c are the extremes, or maybe first proportion, second proportion, and third proportion. So a and c are first and third proportion. So mean proportional means b is the mean proportional, which is square root of product of ac. Okay. All right, let's move ahead and start with our text. Proportions. If the income of a man is increased in the given ratio, let's take it as 2 is to 3, and the increase in his income is given, suppose rupees 50. Find out his new income. Okay, so how are you going to solve? 2 is to 3 is given, the increase is given. So suppose x is the old income and the increase is x plus 50. So these are in proportion. Proportion means two ratios are equal. So x by x plus 50 is equals to 2 by 3. Cross multiply. You get as 3x is equals to 2x plus 50. X is equals to 50. Correct. So if x is equals to 50, okay, so am I writing? Okay, so 2x is equals to 100. So sorry, multiplication, right? So x is equals to 100. So what is the old income? 100. And what is the new income? 100 plus 50, that is 150. Correct? Did you understand this example? So with the help of proportion, you can solve this problem, right? Okay. Again, if the ages of two men are given, suppose there are two men, A and B, and the age ratio is 2 is to 3. If the age of one man is given, for example, let's take it as 30 years of B. B is of 30 years. So what is the age of A? Cross multiply, right? 30 into 2 by 3. It comes as 20 years. Right? So with the help of proportion, you can solve the problem. Right? And an equality, sorry, equality, not inequality. An equality of two ratios is called proportion. Right? A A is to B is equals to C is to D. This is equality of two ratios. Four quantities A, B, C, D are said to be in proportion if A is to B is to C, A is to B is equals to C is to D. Also written as A is to B, and there is double colon given. So wherever there is double colon given, that means it is equal to. Right? So both these ratios are in proportion. That is, if A by B is equals to C by D, then AD equals to BC. You have seen AD equals to BC, product of extremes is equals to product of mean, right? So the quantities A, B, C, D are called terms of proportion. If you have read ratios. What are the terms of ratio? A and B, right? So what were they called as? First term, and please write the first term called as what word in the comment section. Okay, so first term and second term, both the terms had some name given to it in ratios. If you have locked in your answer, I will tell you that the first term was called as antecedent and the second term was called as consequent, right? But now in the proportion unit, the terms of proportion are A, B, C, D. A is called the first term, B is called second term, C is called third term, and D is called fourth term. First and fourth, A, B, C, D, right? So first and fourth are called as extremes or extreme terms, and second and third, right? Second and third are called as means or middle terms. Okay? B and C are middle terms. So if A is to B is equals to C is to D, then D is the fourth proportional. This is how we read it as. D is the fourth proportional. Okay. If A is to B is equals to C is to D are in proportion, then A by B is equals to C by D, that is AD equals to BC, which is in words read as product of extremes is equals to product of means. This is how you will remember, and this is called as the cross product rule. Okay, right. So three quantities A, B, C of the same kind in same units are said to be in continuous proportion, right? Continuous proportion. Three quantities of same kind. For example, apples. Okay, let me see. Same kind, suppose apples are in continuous proportion if three units apples apples. So suppose there are 10 kgs of apples, 30 kgs of apples, and 90 kgs of apples. So three quantities are said to be in continuous proportion if A is to B is equals to B is to C. Let's find out. Okay, so we had 10, 30, 30 and 90. 10 by 30 is equals to 30 by 90, right? One third, one third. So they are in proportion. So they are in continuous proportion, and A by B is equals to B by C. So B square is equals to AC. B is 30. 30 square is equals to 10 into 90. 900 is equals to 900. So LH is equals to RHS. Right? Clear? Okay. If A, B, C are in continuous proportion, then the middle term is called the mean proportional. So in 10, 30 and 90, 30 is the mean proportional B between A and C, and A is the first proportional, that is 10 is the first proportional, and 90 is the third proportional. Thus, if B is mean proportional between A and C, then B square is equals to AC, that is B is equals to root AC. We have already understood this by an example of apples. Let's move ahead. When three or more numbers are so related that the ratio of the first to the second, ratio of second to the third, third to the fourth, etc. are all equal, the numbers are said to be in continued proportion. This is what is given in words. You understood the question, like 10 is to 30 is given. Okay. So, and these are all different. Okay, so this is the definition of continued proportion. Let's read ahead. X, Y, Z, W, P, and Q are in continued proportion. So if a ratio is equal to the reciprocal of the other, then either of them is in reverse or reciprocal proportion of the other. So suppose if the ratio is equal to the reciprocal of the other, example 30 is to 10, then either of them is in inverse, not reverse, inverse or reciprocal proportion of the other. So 10 is to 30. For example, 5 by 4 is in inverse proportion of 4 by 5 and vice versa. We have already seen inverse ratio in the ratio topic, that there also it was given 3 is to 4 is inverse of 4 is to 3 and vice versa. Note. In a ratio A is to B, both quantities must be of same kind. While in proportion, A is to B and C is to D, which are equal, all the four quantities need not be of the same type. The first two should be of same kind and last two quantities should be of same kind. Example, 10 is to 30. Okay, so let's take that 30 10 years and 30 years, okay, and 40 kgs and 120 kgs. So both these are equal, even though 30 and 10 are in years and 40 and 120 are in kgs. Let's see some applications and illustrations. So in short, this note obviously says that the ratios can be in same units, but it can be in different units with the other ratio and still be equal in proportion. Okay, if you understood what I meant here. Now, applications. Illustration 1. 6 is to 8 rupees and 12 toffees is to 16 toffees are in proportion. Simple. First two quantities are of same kind, last two are of same kind. Example 1. Okay. So, example 1, find the value of x. If 10 by 3, okay, is to x is equals to 5 by 2. Okay, so you can just multiply. Let me write it again. Since it is given in fractions, so we have to write it that way. So 10 by 3 whole divided by x is equals to 5 by 2 whole divided by 5 by 4. So inverted. So it comes out as 10 by 3x is equals to, okay, so 2, right? It will come out as 2. So 3x is equals to 5 and x is equals to 5 by 3. X is equals to 5 by 3. Let's check the answer. Yes. Next question, example 3. Find the fourth proportional to first is 2/3, then 3 7 4 and question mark. Since fourth proportional is asked, these are all equal. So how are you going to answer this? You know, product of extremes is equals to product of means. So 2x by 3 is equals to 12 by 7. Cross multiply. 14x equals to 36. X is equals to 36 by 14. 2 18s are 2 sevens are 18 by 7. Correct? Okay. Example 4. Find the third proportion to 2.4 kg and 9.6 kg. Third proportion. Okay. So 2.4, 9.6 and x. So b square is equals to AC. So 9.6 whole square is equals to 2.4 x. You will get it as 38.4. Use your calc. Right. Example 5. Find the mean proportion between 1.25 and 1.8. Mean means you have to find the middle term. 1.25 x and 1.8. So multiply these two and square root. You will get as 1.5. Let's see some properties of proportion which we have already covered in the introduction. If A is to B is equals to C is to D, then AD equals to BC, right? Which we have discussed this proof already. This is known as cross product rule, right? By cross multiplication. Let's see the example quickly. 2 is to 3 is equals to 4 is to 6. Then 2 into 6 is equals to 3 into 4. 12 equals to 12. LHS equals to RHS. Next. If A is to B is equals to C is to D, then B is to A is equals to D is to C invertendo. How will you prove this? Proof is, you know that the inverse ratios are equal. So A by B is equals to C by D. So invert it, right? 1 by A by B is equals to 1 by C by D. So it comes out as B by A is equals to D by C, right? This is invertendo. Alternando, A is to B is equals to C is to, okay, so if you want to see with the help of example, let's see, 2 is this invertendo, okay? 2 is to 3 is equals to 4 is to 6, okay? So 3 is to 2 is also equals to 6 is to 4, right? Correct. Next, alternando. A is to B is equals to C is to D, then A is to C equals to B is to D. So since you will take C from the right side to the left side and B from the left side to the right side. Let's see with the help of example. Same example. So 2 is to 4 is equals to 3 is to 6. This is 1 is to 2 and this is also 1 is to 2. Hence proved. What about componendo? Add 1 on both sides. Correct? A plus B upon B is equals to C plus D upon D. Let's see with the help of example. 2, 3 and 4, 6. Correct? So 2 plus 3 is to 3 is equals to 4 plus 6 is to 6. So 5 is to 3, 10 is to 6 and in the same proportion. What is dividendo? Again minus 1 on both sides. Let's check with the help of an example. Same example. Okay. So 2 minus 3 is to 3. 4 minus 4 minus 6 is to 6. So minus 1 is to 3. Minus 2 is to 6. So same ratio. Okay. So let's prove componendo and dividendo. Okay. So what is this? Okay. So A is to B is equals to C is to D already given. Okay. So proof is, first add 1 on both sides of the same ratio. So you will get a componendo. Then on the original ratio add less 1 on both sides, you will get the dividend. When you get both of these, divide 1 by 2. What are we going to get? A plus B by B whole by A minus B by B is equals to C plus D by D whole divided by C minus D by D. correct? So what are you left with? A plus B divided by A minus B, which is equal to C plus D divided by C minus D. Hence, proved. Let's see the example. Okay, same. 2 is to 3 equals to 4 is to 6. So 2 plus 3 divided by 2 minus 3, and 4 plus 6 divided by 4 minus 6. So 5 minus 1 minus 2, sorry, minus 2, sorry, it is 10 divided by minus 2, which is 5 divided by minus 1, correct? Hence, proved. Next property is addendo. If A is to B is equals to C is to D is equals to E is to F and goes on, then each of these ratios addendo is equals to A plus C plus E is to B plus D plus F, etc. Proof. Let's see the proof. Let's see that all these ratios are equal to K. So what is A equals to? BK. C equals to DK. E equals to FK. Okay. So now A plus C plus E. If you add this left side, what will you get? K common B plus D plus F. Right? Let me write it. A plus C plus E is equals to B plus D plus F, and then take this bracket this side. Okay, so A plus C plus E divided by B plus D plus F, which is equals to K, which was the original equivalent to the ratios itself. Correct? We will see these with with more examples ahead in the exercise. Okay, so let's see if you want to see example for addendo. 2 is to 3 is equals to 4 is to 6 is equals to 8 is to 12. So 2 plus 4 plus 8 is equals to 3 plus 6 plus 12. So both sides are 14 is to, sorry, is to, this is not equal, this is to. 14 is to 21, which is 2/3 original ratio. Similarly, add subtrahendo. Okay, example 2 minus 4 minus 8 is to 3 minus 6 minus 12. So minus 10 is to minus 15. So it is 2 is to 3, the original ratio. I hope you understood this. If you have any doubts, please let me know in the comment section. I will cover that in more detail in the revision video. Example 1. If A is to B is equals to C is to D, 2.5 is to 1.5, what are the values of AD is to BC and A plus C is to B plus D? Okay, so there are two questions asked. Okay, so let us write. What are the ratios given? A is to B is equals to C is to D is given, correct? Which is equals to 2.5 upon 1.5. So when you add the numerators, A plus C and B plus D, all these are equal to each other. So this is addendo. So the second part, A plus C is to B plus D, is 2.5 is to 1.5. If you remove the decimals, you get 5 is to 3, right? And for the first part, this is, if you cross multiply, you get AD equals to BC, correct? So you already know that if there are two ratios already given, Okay, if two ratios already given, then AD is equals to BC, right? So AD divided by BC is equals to 1. So AD is to BC will be 1 is to 1. Let's check the answer. 1 is to 1 and 5 is to 3. Okay, example number 2. A divided by 3 equals to B by 4 equals to C by 7. Then prove this. Okay, so it is very easy. Let us add like an addendo formula. What do you get? There are three ratios you have. Okay, so you get A plus B plus C divided by 3 plus 4 plus 7, which is equals to the last ratio C by 7, because all are equal. So when you add the denominator here, you get this total is 14. Okay, so what do you get? A plus B plus C, take the C, this side C is equal to 14, that side 14 by 7, which is equals to 2. So this is what we had to prove, hence proved. Example 3. A dealer mixes tea costing 6.92 per kg with tea costing 7.77 per kg and sells the mixture at 8.8 per kg. Okay, all right. So hold on.